To talk us through what is happening in regards to the economic partnership agreement between the EU and the East African community, we have in studio Michael Ryan, who's ambassador and head of EU delegation to Rwanda. We have on the line as well Marcus Courage, CEO of Africa Practice, to take us through this, and Bonnie Tunya in Nairobi to ask more questions to our guests for the day. So we'll start off with Michael Ryan here. Thank you for creating time to speak to us. Now, before we started, we touched on what happened in Rwanda. We saw the yields and the franc, the Tanzanian unit, the Kenyan shilling, all volatile at the moment. We are not seeing it stabilizing. But we talked about how Rwanda is still a lot further away from being hardly hit or immediately hit by what happened now with the vote earlier today. Just give us a sense of how you think we are reacting to this and how soon we should be able to feel a lot more magnitude in the impact.
Well, I think from Rwanda's position, there's very little to be directly concerned by economically. What is happening in Europe is, at least in the markets, is an immediate response to the decision, the exit referendum outcome, and I presume that will settle over the coming days. I'm not a financial expert, so I couldn't tell you much more than that, other than that we have received quite a major shock today in the decision of Britain to exit, and the repercussions and consequences of all that are being analyzed minute by minute. The European leaders are now gathered this morning, the head of the European Commission, the European Parliament and the Council of Europe with the rotating Netherlands presidency, the Dutch Prime Minister, and they have come together to say, we regret the decision of Britain, of the British outcome, and we press for a rather rapid negotiation out, not to let the matter hang for too long, and that might create disturbance to the market. But in the case of Rwanda, we have the European Union foreign policy is not driven by, the European Union will not collapse, by the way. There's one country, albeit an important country, that has decided to leave. But the principles on which we are founded, that Mr. Greenspan alluded to, the creation of peace and stability within the Union of Europe after the war is still very important. And the principles upon which we form partnerships with our third countries, such as Rwanda and the East African community, are still there and will continue. We have very much a long-term view on our partnerships, and that will be there. The funding that we bring to Rwanda, I believe, will remain. We're committed to those amounts. If there are any reductions in the European Development Fund, we'll have to have a look at that. But for the moment, my message here in Rwanda and elsewhere is, do not panic. Let's see how we'll deal with this. It's still quite some way away, and we hope that the market shocks will not rebound too much worldwide, including here in East Africa.
All right, I'm sure Bonnie Tunya in Nairobi has a particular question for you. Bonnie?
Right, Mr. Ambassador, thank you for joining us this afternoon. I'll ask a very unfair question. There has been reports of possible walkouts with the precedent set by Brexit. How big a threat is it, if any?
You mean walkouts by other countries?
Right.
Well, first of all, we're dealing with the case of Britain, and I think one of the reasons that the European Union will be very keen to press ahead with an early resolution of negotiations is to ensure that the uncertainty that will be surrounding our European Union at present of 28 member states will not extend too far. And I think that's an important consideration. But there's no question of anyone else at this stage threatening to walk out. There are some populist movements here and there, but it is up now to our political leadership to take these matters at home in their own capitals into hand.
Let's bring in Marcus Courage, CEO of Africa. Thank you, Marcus. Let's bring you back here to Michael, Mr. Ryan. Now, we had on 16th October 2014, the EAC, Burundi, Kenya, Rwanda, Tanzania, Uganda, finalized negotiations for a region-to-region comprehensive economic partnership agreement with the EU. How much of this should we see? We talked about the issue on, we are still, they didn't exit today. They still have a long period of time to do that. But how should we work out the conversations now to ensure that we are ready in the event that they leave and the people in power leave at that point?
Well, first of all, the economic partnership agreement between the East African Community and the European Union is about to be signed, and I would urge all the members of the East African Community to go ahead and sign it. And I believe that's scheduled for next month on the 18th of July. Right. I think that's an important occasion. If that's let slip, you're talking about a partnership agreement with the biggest trading bloc in the world, which is the European Union. Even after the exit of UK, we will still be something like 440 million consumers, a massive economic weight in the world. Britain would have to do an enormous effort to negotiate independent, separate trade agreements with various different groups. Right. To me, the logic of being inside the club is that it is to the benefit of all. I'm not sure what Britain would stand to gain from, or what better terms it could negotiate that aren't available within the European Union. But as far as the East African Community is concerned, I think this should go ahead and not be delayed pending some clarification of the exit. It is with the European Union, not with a particular country.
Before Bonnie asks you his question, of course, we've been looking at the EU, the integration, what they've been happening with the integration, what set a precedent for us here, and of course now that could, something that could spiral into something else or other conversations. But do you think this should be fit into the AU summit agenda, even as we anticipate that we need to be much stronger at this particular point?
Well, I think there's always lessons to be learned, and I've always admired the way that the members of the East African Community are taking on issues of a common currency, common visa, common security, trade issues, customs union. Those principles are still admirable. We may have a problem right now, but those principles are there, rational, and to be taken advantage of.
Right. Bonnie?